Hey guys, so I am looking for your help. I am going to be doing a Q&A video. So if you guys could just DM me some questions, whether it's personal, whether it's business, whether it's snakes, anything that I can make a YouTube video out of, please give me a message. So today we're going to do something a little bit different. I had asked you guys on Instagram to send me a few questions because we're going to do a Q&A. So let's hop into our first question. So Emily Bonner asked, how do I find my missing milk snake? So I don't have experience with milk snakes in particular, but I've lost a fair amount of snakes. It's important to know that every time you lose a snake, it's your fault. And it's not something to get down on, but it's something to use to improve your enclosure, improve how you keep, and figure out a way to problem solve so that it never happens again. So depending on the species, they all behave a little bit differently when they get out. So if you lose an Amazon tree boa, you might want to look up. If you lose a baby corn snake, you may want to look up also. If you have an adult corn snake, it's probably less likely that it's going to be on top of anything. So as animals get older, in most species, they're usually less arboreal, unless you're talking about your fully arboreal species. So something like a corn snake, definitely a ball python won't go too far. What you want to do is check all the dark and warm places. For ball pythons, I would open up your rack and everything, look behind your rack, look behind your tubs. Turns out a lot of the times, they'll go down one level or stay on the same level and just be on the heat tape because they like to be in dark, small places that are warm. Now, as far as your milk snake goes, like I said, it depends on age, but they are so small. Colubrids are so small when they're babies. If it's a baby, you're gonna have a tough time finding it. What you wanna make sure to do is that your room is unescapable. So hopefully you have a separate snake room. If not, it's your bedroom. But you wanna make sure that there's not a lot of room under the doors. There's not vents that are easily climbed in by the snakes. There's not other things that would let the snakes out into your house. So when you do lose a snake, you say, hey, I know it's in this room somewhere. Now it's just time to look in this room. I've heard of people putting out traps, which means you can put a water bottle out, put a pinky in the water bottle, set it on the ground, and then hopefully your snake comes in and eats it and stays in there. Has that worked for me? 0 times that's worked for me. But what does work is usually looking in places that they typically tend to go to. So if you have one snake get out and it went to a particular area, there's kind of reason to think that the next one may be in an area like that as well. Hot spots are under the couch, under the refrigerator, behind washing machines, dryers, underneath all that stuff. All the dark places that are kept a little bit warmer are going to be your first places to look. Emily, I hope you find your milk snake. Just make sure to be thorough and check all the dark, warm places. Alright, so question number 2. Just some arsehole on Instagram asked, what is my most favorite snake that I own? Okay, so you may have heard me say it before, but one of my favorite snakes in my collection, and if people ask me what my favorite snake is, it's hard for me not to say my olive python. They have a really, really intense food reaction. So when you open that tub, you better hook them out first. And then when I just get this girl out, she is super tame. And you can't always trust her 100%. She still is an animal and she'll still mistake you for food every once in a while. But I feel comfortable enough to put her around my neck. And I could say that this right now is one of my favorite animals. And that is what I say consistently, so I guess this must be my favorite snake that I own. There you go, I said it. So Kyle asked, do I still plan on breeding carpet pythons? Right now, I don't have any plans on breeding carpet pythons because all I have are 2 males. So let me show you at least one of those males now. So here is my male diamond jungle carpet python. I love carpet pythons, but as of right now, I only have 2 males. And I do not plan on breeding them, obviously, because I don't have females. And it's just been one of those things that I've kind of put off and haven't gotten around to buying a female. And now I'm like, I don't have the motivation to grow up a female all the way from a baby and do what I have to do to breed them. But I never want to part with my jungle carpet males or my diamond jungle carpet males. So I guess I'm just stuck with males now. I don't know if I'll ever breed them. Maybe one day if the right time comes or someone's willing to do some type of joint project with me. But for the immediate future, I do not have plans to breed them, but I sure do love them. Alright, so Shortcake91 asks, hey, I've got a question. Can you go into detail on how morph/genes work for breeding corn snake? I have a breeding pair of het scaleless corn snakes, and I'm supposed to get a 1:4 ratio for scaleless. Is this true, and what do I do next? Just breed them again, or can I breed the babies also to get more scaleless? So I need to probably do a whole episode on how genes work, but we'll start off with the basics and I'll do a pretty quick rundown. So scaleless is a recessive gene, which means that both animals need to have the gene. So she does have het scaleless, so they both have the scaleless mutation. It is not showing, so therefore it's heterozygous. And those two heterozygous animals, like she said, 1 in 4 will come out scaleless, or you have a 25% chance of them being scaleless. So what you want to do if you have that pairing and your 1 of 4 comes out scaleless, you want to hold back those scaleless, because when those scaleless get of age and those breed together, scaleless to a scaleless will produce all scaleless. So I would keep on breeding that pair of het scaleless and hold back a bunch of the scaleless. Unfortunately, when you're breeding het to het, all of the offspring that are not exhibiting scaleless, you won't be able to say that those are het scaleless because they will only be 66% het. So unfortunately, you will have a little byproduct that you may have to sell as a possible het, or you may have to sell as a normal and not disclose that it may be het for scaleless. So that is a little bit of a backtrack as far as that goes. You're not gonna make money in the short run if you're selling the hets, or possible hets are gonna be a lot cheaper than your things that are definite hets. So that's something to watch out for, but I would keep back a couple scaleless. That scaleless male will be ready in 2 years and the scaleless female in 3. So once that scaleless baby hits the 2-year mark, you can bring them back to the mom. And there is no issue with breeding them within the family. There's enough genetic diversity in our collections in corn snakes not to pose any problems. Not saying that you want to keep on doing that over and over again, but for the short future, that is not an issue to bring a sibling to a sibling or back to a parent or anything like that. Alright, Charlotte Collins asked, what are your favorite and least favorite things about breeding corn snakes? And how did you get so into it? Let's start with the bad things about breeding corn snakes. The bad thing is that people don't perceive them as valuable as other snakes. You can get these cool mutations, some of the coolest mutations in any snakes are in corn snakes, and they'll go for $125. When cool mutations in other species may at the very least fetch $1,000, or at the bottom maybe $200. Take for example an albino ball python, you still may get $200 to $250 for that. It's a different game when you're talking about corn snakes. Unfortunately, a lot of the base mutations go for about as much as a normal would, $20, $25. So what you have to do is find a way to make the animals valuable to the customer and valuable to people, and make sure that you're not just selling off a disposable pet. So that's what I don't like about breeding corn snakes. What I do like about breeding corn snakes is they are super, super hardy snakes. They always eat. I don't have many issues. And quite frankly, when you put them into brumation for that 3 months, you get time off from feeding all the snakes and cleaning all the snakes, and it's nice. And by the time you take them out, you're super pumped to get back to feeding and cleaning. And then the pairing and the breeding is so straightforward that it makes it just a pleasure to work with the animals, and you have a high degree of success. And then they're easy to incubate. You don't need an incubator, and they hatch out good size. I mean, they are very small and they're hard to work with at first, but once you get used to it and you get them feeding, they're just awesome snakes to take care of. So there's many more good things about it, but that's kind of the rundown on how I feel on the actual breeding process. They're super awesome. You can get a lot of babies, and no matter what you're breeding, just enjoy it. So Andrew Ross on Facebook asked me, what made me get into snakes? Quite frankly, my dad actually kept snakes when I was a kid, and my first grade class, I actually brought a corn snake in for show and tell. And my whole life I've been around snakes, although not as in depth as I am now. And I got out of it for quite a while. Even though I kept a tortoise in college, I didn't pay much mind to the snakes that I had. Even in high school, I had one and I was cool with that. I never really knew that you could breed them together. I didn't know that there were morphs. I didn't know that there was money involved. I didn't know any of this stuff. So it really took to after college, after I got back from basic training out of the Army, is when I found out the market of breeding snakes and all of this existed. I was just going through BHB, VMS, herbs, all this stuff, just looking at all the corn snakes saying, holy shit, like I had no idea any of this existed. And it was like opening Pandora's box. So that's really when I got back into it. And that's the quick story of kind of how I got into snakes. And I would go more in depth, but I'll leave it there. And then Andrew also asked, what morphs do you think will always be in demand for hognoses? And, you know, what can someone do to choose a morph that won't go down in value and something that you can have fun with and produce all the time and make your money back so that you're able to support your collection, which I totally understand. So when answering our hognose question, I should probably be holding a hognose, right? So this girl is a het snow, and that's definitely one of the projects that I want to talk about. The things that we see consistently stay popular in the hobby are just things that catch your eye. It's super simple. And even if they go down to, you know, say $150, $200, you're not gonna get rich off of them, but it's something that will keep its value. I always look to things like albino and snows. You know, what could be better than an orange bright hognose or a white one? She's trying to talk over me right now. It's really about choosing a morph that is not kind of a fly-by-night. You see a lot of these morphs that aren't necessarily good looking fetch a high dollar amount just for the simple fact that they're new. And those are the ones that you wanna watch out for. If you have the money to invest in them, I'm sure you'll do fine, but I try to go for the tried and trues, things like albinos and snows, especially in hognose, something like a exanthic, even an exanthic anaconda, the super anacondas. I think those just catch your eye like nothing else, and I think that's the best way to go for it, is the eye test. So we're about to get into our last question. I wanted to ask you guys, how do you feel about the Q&A? Should I do a Q&A again? Also, weigh in your opinions. You know, if you have differing opinions from what I said in this video, I'd love to hear about it. So tell me what you think. So our last question is from Dallas Rua. I hope that I pronounced your last name right, Dallas. How do you personally feel about hybridizing? You know, for example, corn snakes with king snakes with rat snakes, milk snakes. Well, I kind of have a differing opinion on this. I don't try to go out of my way to hybridize. It's one thing to be at the subspecies level, but I kind of try to stop it at the species level. So I don't really believe in hybridizing kings and corns. I just don't see much of a reason for it. They do come out looking really, really cool, but I don't want to confuse anyone on what's in your snake. So I want to be able to say this is a rat snake, this is a corn snake. I don't want to have any confusion with king snake blood in there. That has no place for me in my corn snake. I want to keep those separate, but that's just me in my opinion. As far as rat snakes, we've been breeding corn snakes for long enough to where a lot of our animals are hybridized and we don't even know it. You know, Emery rat snakes and corn snakes, put those together, it doesn't seem to be a big deal. But now taxonomy has changed and Emery rats are their own species, and therefore it's become kind of a gray area. And we're lucky enough to be in their native habitat, so we can never get too confused, as far as we can always get corn snakes out of the wild if we really, really have to, or king snakes or emery rats, things that we know are definitely pure because they're in this country. That goes a little bit differently for stuff like your carpet pythons, which are from Australia, and the door's closed and there's no more new blood coming in At least there's not supposed to be. So the jungle carpets or the coastal carpets that we have here are what we have. And once you breed something into them, it can never be bred out. It will always be a certain percentage of that subspecies or different species. So that's something to be cognizant of, because there's no going back once you do it. Okay, so I was being a hypocrite before, because this is an Ultramel corn snake, and Ultra was originally obtained from a pairing that was a gray rat snake to a corn snake, and therefore it was a hybrid. And then it's bred into another corn snake that had amel into it, and that's how you get Ultramel. So this has gray rat snake in it. Any Ultramel has gray rat snake in it. Even though it looks, acts, does everything just like every other corn snake, it does have gray rat snake blood in it, as well as the scaleless. Scaleless came from an emery rat that was bred to a corn snake and ended up with a scaleless. So none of the scaleless are pure, or a root beer is an emery and a corn snake, and then also your creamsicles have emery blood in it as well. So you do have a bunch of hybrids out there at this point. It's hard to say that any of the corns are pure, so there's only so much you can do. I want to keep things pure, but I also want to make awesome looking snakes, and I love the way Ultramel looks, so that's why I didn't mind working with Ultramel. That's really it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, and if you made it this far, you're on the team.